Humanity Party Solution to End Poverty. This is a review and walkthrough of their so-called solution. A long time passes in the video. A lot of words go by, but he doesn't actually say anything. After he's done softening you up with vague, empty promises, his solution is to take money from war and make food with it, and that's it. He then acknowledges that his own idea is stupid, then acknowledges that his solution is no solution at all, but a pipe dream, and as he calls it, a theory. So we just have to wait and hope that the military throws money at us. So instead, he is going to take away all of NASA and anything to do with space exploration, and make food with it. He later forgets that he is funding it all by shutting down NASA, and goes back to saying he is going to shut down the military, forgetting everything he said earlier about the importance of the military. He says we need a universal ID card to pay for everything. His government is going to print out imaginary money that we can only buy healthy food with, but it only applies to people who laugh, smile and cry, which rules out those who chronically suffer, the very people who need it. He then says he will control inflation by making it illegal for inflation to go beyond 1.5% per year. So that means that we can only put out a maximum 1.5% of the total money supply each year. From here, it just goes completely incoherent. To compensate for that, his free ride for life solution changes. Now you're going to have to work. His reason for everyone going to work for no particular reason is that they will be eating specialized healthy food and their minds will magically start working again and just do what he wants them to do. It gets incoherent again, so he has to use buzzwords. Hey, look here, liberty. Immediately after trying to blind you with liberty, the magic card can now only give you life's basic necessities, which according to him does not include a TV. Apart from that, who knows what basic necessity even means? But that doesn't matter anymore, because while they are given all the necessities in life for free, they also now have to work by force in order to get their free necessities. It then becomes clear that there is no public transport, because traveling is not considered a necessity. He then says that healthy and happy people don't sit around all day doing nothing. Really? So welfare cheating doesn't exist? Greed, corruption and all evil things somehow magically solve themselves by feeding people healthy food? Well, what about people who eat healthy food and still don't work as hard as the president of the world wants them to? I don't think he's made it that far yet. He then just goes off generalizing about his poor understanding of human nature. Everyone just magically does what he tells them to, because healthy food makes all bad things just magically stop. But wait, he started off saying that he needs the greed of industries for his magic system to work. But stop. Forget that. Buzzword time. Expand your horizons. But only expand your horizons to as much as the world has to offer you. After all, we can't go pioneering a better way of doing things, can we? Else Mr. President of the world will lose his throne. He is going to make people go out in the world and work, because if you don't, you are lazy. Oh wait, so name-calling and humiliating people is how he is going to motivate people. But, hang on. I thought they didn't even need motivation. After all, healthy food. This magic system is not just full of holes, it is a hole. He then says that the forced free will working conditions will improve. After all, healthy food makes you work and do what you're told, maybe with a bit of mind control drugs in it or something. Since people won't have to work anymore, his fully automated industries will make working conditions so good that people will just want to take over the robots and do it manually. Maybe because of the drugs in the healthy food. Because drugs in your food give you a healthy mind. And a healthy mind does everything Mr. President tells it to do. No more labor unions because they can just quit. Because they don't have to work. Or do they? Perhaps they need more healthy food. And then at this point, happiness spreads around the world, and if you're not happy, you need more healthy food. He then says he is going to put a Walmart in every corner of the earth, and cure poverty by forcing people to eat more healthy food. That makes them do what they're told. And if someone steals your magic card that everyone wants so desperately, they just give you another one. I can see a black market forming here. But wait, they won't steal cards because healthy food. And as I understand his context here, the government knows who you are because they track everyone through their DNA. But don't worry, theft won't exist, because everyone gets free stuff. Free necessities of life. But if you want necessities of life, you have to work for it. And your working conditions will be perfect because, while you have to work for the free necessities of life, you also don't have to work for them at the same time. Then he talks about how to end all wars. He will walk up to them, hand them his magic card, and they will just put all their guns down. That's his solution to bring an end to all wars. Because mind control healthy food. You don't really have a choice because your magic card can only buy healthy food. He then says that you can buy all the food that you want, with a grand selection, ignoring the fact that he has already made the choice for you and aren't allowed to buy anything else. So after shutting down NASA, shutting down the military, shutting down all wars with a magic card, he still needs more money. So now he is going to shut down all the banks and just make them pay for everything. The banks are going to be forced to print out imaginary money just like the government. This way, inflation somehow ends because banks and the government are both printing out piles of imaginary money. Before you try to add that up, he reminds us again that no war equals more food and banks are just going to pay for it all, after NASA and whoever else paid for it all too. I guess we just keep shutting things down by force and consuming them one after another to pay for everything. Again he says without an explanation how industries are going to obsessively pursue this new magic money with the greed he already cured with healthy food. The food makers are then going to be the wealthiest people in the world, the new elite in a new world of equality. But they are going to be a good elite because healthy food. He then makes a last attempt at baiting people with free stuff, by appealing to the very laziness he previously denied the existence of. The very thing he denied being the naming and shaming tactic he uses as a motivator while curing it with healthy food. He then explains that his way of motivating people to make it all work is to do what you want to do, instead of do what you're forced to do. After all, healthy food. He then claims that we all hate doing things we need to do, and love doing things we want to do. As far as I know, I love doing things I love to do, and I like doing things I want to do. I do not need to misuse the word love as a false pedestal. Maybe it will all make sense after eating some healthy food. He then makes more false claims of human nature to fill up the hole he's made. According to him, people who want to be poor because they are poor, and people who want to be rich because they are rich. Well, if you ask a poor person if they want to be poor or rich, I think you'd already know the answer. He then says that we can never change human nature, but this is in direct contradiction to his other plan he isn't telling you about here, of deleting and remolding human nature by force, to fit with what he wants it to be. A plan he is going to achieve through healthy food. He closes things up by saying let the rich be rich and the greedy be greedy. I guess he doesn't want his new elite to be eating his healthy food. He says that his plan will work, and it is the only way. His movie closes with a series of pictures of poor black people, followed by a remake of his old recycled logo from a previous attempt called Worldwide United Foundation, almost a decade ago. I guess he was too busy since then trying to be a false Mormon prophet, too busy to save the world or at least give something back to it. I will give a solution to poverty, a real one. It first involves identifying what poverty is and the many causes behind it. Poverty is not necessarily a bad thing. There are people who try harder and achieve more than others. These people build a heritage for their children over generations. Heritage is passed on, but heritage is more than just your immediate family. Heritage is a racial thing. This is why we have nations. Borders exist to separate and protect the racial and cultural heritage of any given people from the plunder of those who have not been building and maintaining a heritage. Every war in history has been about the violation of borders and the plunder of another's heritage. People who build a heritage tend to have respect for the space and property of others. People who have abandoned their heritage tend not to have respect for the space and property of others. It is very easy for these people to become parasitic upon those who have a heritage. Through immigration, human parasites consume the heritage of others. Today, this parasitic consumption or plunder is labeled a good thing. They call it equality. But that isn't fair at all. It's rape, theft and genocide. People of a lesser heritage must face the consequences of their own actions. Their heritage, or lack of it, is their inheritance and theirs alone. It is their choice what to do with that. If you give human parasites freedom from consequence, they will never learn to value heritage. Instead, they must be forced to face the consequences of their own actions. In the spirit of human rights, they must be helped to a degree, but only so much as to enable them the opportunity to do it right. It must not be done for them, and it must only come from the excess of those who can afford it. It must not come from the cost of their own. Since humanity covers such a wide scale of disposition from parasite to altruist, there will always be poverty. That isn't a bad thing. It's a lesson for those who abandon their heritage and revert into parasites. The consequence of poverty for abandoning your heritage is an evolutionary and moral principle that maintains heritage and also quality in evolution. If you remove that principle, you remove the consequences and genocidal parasitism flourishes. Standards are eroded, morals are corrupted, and human nature begins to rot. Now obviously, there is another, very different major cause of poverty. This type of poverty involves corruption within governments and industries. It is critically important not to confuse the two major causes of poverty. If you confuse these two causes of poverty, you allow parasites to roam free and plunder your heritage. Corruption within governments can be either predominantly or exclusively a reflection of the nature of the people they govern, or a reflection of external corruption from foreign influences. History is rewritten to muddy the waters and reverse the roles to justify present-day parasitism. Human parasites will lie and lie and lie, to portray themselves as victims when they are in fact the perpetrators of their own self-made problems. They demand to be saved from the consequences of their own actions. But when you save them, they will turn on you also and make up more lies to blame you for their actions both past and present. There are two polar types of relationship. One is a parasite. The other is an altruist. One takes, the other gives. Symbiosis is a third type of relationship, a medium and lesson to teach a parasite the values of an altruist. Life starts out as a benign parasite. As it progresses through evolution, it learns values that shape its very form. The battle between altruism and parasitism will always exist, so long as life evolves. This is not a bad thing, but a good thing because it drives evolution forward to the realization of fundamental values and principles. But it can also go wrong. In certain circumstances, such as external interference of an ecosystem, an idea can become corrupted and passed on in a way that is very harmful and contagious. Ideas themselves can take on a life of their own. As an ideological parasite within a host, it can strip a host of its identity over time, steering the very path of evolution. These viruses, like biological parasites, will always exist, but sometimes, for various reasons, it can go wrong and get out of hand. Certain ideological viruses have plagued mankind for a long time. When you take two human races that are very different far beyond skin color, and you mix them together, you end up with something that has no racial heritage. It is neither one nor the other. It retains partially functioning traits that worked as a highly evolved system in one race, but doesn't work the same if at all in another race. There are evolutionary mechanisms to prevent crossbreeding and maintain the strength of gene pools, but those mechanisms have been worn down and disabled in mankind. At the end of the Pleistocene Ice Age, the Caucasoid race met the Negroid and Mongoloid races, creating various groups of interracial crossbreeds. Those crossbreeds were rejected by both races just like it's done in the animal kingdom. Some of them survived, but were very vulnerable. They were prone to certain etiological viruses that made them aggressive and parasitic upon the pure races. For the pure races who survived the ongoing assault, they adapted evolutionary counters to the threat. Most hominid and human races are now extinct because of the genocides committed by these crossbreeds. This crossbreeding problem is the very reason why the surviving races branched out so far away from each other. The three true surviving races developed their own evolutionary counters to the problem, some of which includes an aggressive counter stance against any threat to their gene pool. A complex network of destructive relationships between the races has been going on for the past 12,000 years. A lot of evolution has happened when it comes to dispositions. A lot of that includes an imprinted trigger to react to racial threats in different ways. The same thing happens in the animal kingdom, but with humans it was very destructive due to the capacity of a human brain, which was a Garden of Eden for ideological viruses to run rampant. Today, we have political correctness to censor anyone who identifies a parasite threat. We have all these evolutionary triggers firing off, but no one is allowed to talk about it. Racial hatred festers inside people, corrupting and destroying any constructive relations that once were. Parasitism has run rampant, because all of the mechanisms to defend against them have been disabled. We live in a world where parasites plunder a defenseless host. Governments are entirely and irreparably corrupt because the defenses that uphold minimum standards and consequence have been disabled. Governments do not serve their own people, but foreign parasites who have no respect for borders and conspire together to share the plunder of the host. The disabled host is predominantly the white race. The parasites are every racial group including parasites among their own race. But even among those other racial groups, even the worst has the capacity to sprout altruism, because human nature and mammalian evolution is that resilient. It is so resilient that virtually all parasitism can be cured, if not all. But we live in a world now overrun by parasites. Altruists are hunted down as quickly as they appear. In gene pools dominated by parasitism, they don't stand a chance. The parasitic infiltration. The people who have abandoned their heritage in pursuit of green pastures exploiting the heritage of others, have gained a stranglehold on every government and industry. From the very inception of the industrial age, the worm was in the apple from the very beginning. But there is still hope, and Anonymous is the hope. Anonymous shows us that even in the worst places on Earth, good still has the capacity to sprout and change everything against impossible odds. Anonymous shows that there is still some good still left in this world, and it's worth fighting for. We don't need to believe. We don't even need hope. All we need is to try, and keep trying. Parasitism is very unevenly distributed throughout the human gene pools, but it exists as a significant problem within all human gene pools. Stop parasitism by first starting with yourself. Realize that there are likely people who are smarter or dumber than you, better or worse than you at any given area. Realize that there are likely races that are better than you in most areas. Put aside the toxic, egalitarian lie. We are not all equal. No one is equal. We are all unequal without hierarchy. We are all very different on many levels, and that is a good thing. You can give a book to 1 billion identical clones of the same person, and none of them will pick up a certain typo, and yet, even the least among mankind might pick up a typo that the greatest did not. You need to stop comparing yourself against others, dragging them down to make it all even. Instead, value the good in all creatures, and reject the bad. Hold everyone to a minimum standard of mutual coexistence, and defend any victim you see, against any threat. No more lies about history. No more political correctness. No more excuses. Everyone is responsible for their own actions, at all times. You own your actions. You own the thoughts you entertain. You own your heritage. You, and you alone. We all come from a different branch in the tree of life. Anything that hurts a branch, hurts the tree. If you're not protecting the branches from external threats, then you are the threat to the tree itself and hence a threat to every branch. You're either a part of the tree, or you're not. There are many lesser reasons for why poverty exists. Those reasons are too many to list and too complex and unique in each case to list in this video. A few examples are drugs, low intelligence, false beliefs, overpopulation, environmental resource limits, and many reasons. But these problems are rooted in the same problems above, with the same solutions of ending parasitism. For example, when a person has a drug addiction problem, they made a decision to abandon a life of meaning and pursue shallow pleasure. They live in the moment, caring for nothing more than their next high. They are someone who, instead of entering a race to run and build themselves up through training, they're only there to loot the trophy. Are these people really deserving of pity? Or should they be blamed or shamed for the decisions and values they choose every day? Sure, there are going to be other parasites pushing drugs behind the scenes, and they should be dealt with as with all parasites. But never make excuses for those who abandon their personal responsibilities. Let them be an example to everyone else of what paths not to take. This is how evolution works. Should they make poor choices? They own those choices. If their actions led to their own suffering and eventual extinction, it is their choice to make. Should they try to drag others down with them, then they are not of the tree and should be treated as a threat to the whole tree. Perhaps in some cases, poverty should not be seen as a problem, but an ideological lifestyle choice, for better, or worse, or in the exploration of an idea that has yet to reveal its value. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. Outside of building a database not through spokesmen and representatives that speak for someone else, but through a global consensus, a House of Representatives with 7 billion seats, a place ruled not by men with special ranks and titles, but a place maintained by standards of coherent reason, where all people engage ideas without censorship and interference, where problems and solutions reveal themselves at the table, so that they are seen and understood firsthand for what they truly are, as opposed to proclaiming the unknown and demanding adherence and faith in the proclaimant. It is a place where you leave your ego and personal attachment to beliefs at the door, a place where identities are hidden, and the focus is on the message and not the messenger. A new United Nations as it should have been. Not one of parasite dictators and false doctrines, but of the people, unequal and without hierarchy, in the spirit of protecting heritage in the tree of life, sharing a common ground of independence and mutual coexistence, a place where all people have a voice and a seat reserved for them at all times, a place where mankind learns again how to fly as a flock and govern not each other but themselves. There is your answer to poverty. There is your solution to every problem. The truth will not simply be proclaimed, but revealed at the table firsthand and seen with your own eyes and understood with your own capacity for reason. The future of mankind inevitably rests on a simple thing. Which is stronger? The potential of human nature for good or evil? Are you prepared to step up and own your heritage? Or are you a coward and a proud parasite who hides behind political correctness and false history to justify what you do? This choice determines whether you are remembered as a parasite who wasted every chance you were given, right to the end, or whether you were one of those heroes who arose from the ashes of immoral filth and lies, and pioneered the building of a heritage far greater than anything that has ever been seen before. There are no shortcuts. There are no magic solutions. There is only what you build from the choices you make. No name, no credit, no identity, No recognition. No ego. No titles. No personal attachment to beliefs. No excuses. We have no leaders. Because we are leaders. We lead by the example we set. And follow by consensus we build. We do what we do not because we can, but because we must. Because no one else will. And because no one else can, we fight wars you never knew, in places you'll never see. To give you choices you never had, and be what you were made to be. We do not need your approval. We need no introduction. We are anonymous.
Yes, me.